Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here at Activate Learn on Twitter. It is time for another book review. Now this one is going to be a very short book review, and it is a review of Stella Brown's Living Alone. I had to think about that for a while because I've got these glasses in my hand, and you're probably thinking, haven't you got a pair of glasses on your face? Well, I do, but I wear these magnifying glasses because I can't see the page, the writing and the screen. I guess you can increase the size on the screen, but don't worry about that. I might as well just wear two glasses. Anyway, so what was I saying? Right, Stella Brown's Living Alone. The book itself was written in 1918 and it was published in 1919. Stella Brown was a diarist, and she was related to Samuel Pepys, who, hey, guess what, was also a diarist. So it must have run in her family. Over the years, when she was alive, she wrote a lot about her experiences, but she struck me as someone who was very sad, someone who had kind of some disability. She had a problem with her ears. I think she was going deaf. But it strikes me that she just had this sadness about her, about the way things were and the state of the world. And it came across in this book, Living Alone. Now, Living Alone, when I downloaded the book, it really sounded interesting. I thought to myself, okay, what's a writer who published this book in 1919? What is she going to be writing about? And in fact, when I read this book, it was really kind of semi-autobiographical. The protagonist of the story is Sarah Brown. Stella Brown, the author, Sarah Brown, the character. Do you say it? Now, Sarah Brown is a young woman. She's single, obviously unmarried. She doesn't have many friends, but it's that time of the war in London. Things are a bit crazy. No one knows what the hell's going on with regards to the war. And she's involved in a whole heap of committees, and she doesn't really want to be in these committees. And the committees are obviously attended by more highfalutin women of the time, Lady Arabelle and Mrs. Metaford, who kind of put on their airs and graces to feel as if they're doing something for the war effort, but really just kind of put their nose down at people. And so here is Sarah Brown, who is utterly frustrated, but she really can't do anything. And she's a general admin assistant, I guess you can call it, for these committees where she's utterly bored. Then in flies this woman out of the blue, who was like a breath of fresh air. She comes into the committee and we find out that she's a witch. And this witch is trying to escape someone chasing her for stealing a bun. And we find out from everyone how disgusted they are with this woman, but this witch somehow has this knack of being very innocent, being very curious about how people are and saying things as they are, which was a breath of fresh air to Sarah Brown. Sometime later, Sarah decides to go and try and find where this witch is, just to find out more information. She doesn't want to be a friend, but she really kind of liked what this witch said because there was a naivety about her. This witch didn't seem to follow rules, which I seem to think it's kind of like Sarah's not wanting to follow the rules of how women were in that society back in the 1919. So she finds the witch, and the witch offers her an opportunity to live in this kind of hostel. And this hostel is very different to anything that Sarah has heard about. Basically, she gets given a room. In that room, there's a table, there's a bed. She can only bring in exactly what she can carry in one suitcase. She must not meet anyone. She has her food provided for. So in effect, it's kind of like being in some kind of lockdown, and that she can't have friends over. And basically Sarah thinks, this is the best. I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to speak to people. And Sarah hates speaking to people. And so she gets into this forced lockdown. We'll call it a lockdown in this place. But in this place, she also gets to meet some other characters. Now, this whole book is really fantasy. Some parts of it really doesn't make sense. Sometimes you read it and you go, what the hell am I reading here? There are fights with witches on broomsticks. There is a battle with broomsticks over the city of London during wartime. And so as I was reading this book, I thought to myself, J.K. Rowling would have read this book, because everything about this book really was like reading Harry Potter. The fantastical creatures, the wizards and the witches, the magic that they used to carry around in little packets and envelopes that they used to throw into the fireplaces that would change the situation or change the atmosphere. Everything about it was Harry Potter-like. So I start to wonder that maybe J.K. Rowling had some inspiration from Stella Brown's Living Alone, and it's something that I'd like to explore anyway. The book itself, look, I think to some people they're going to think, what the hell have I read? Because it is really fantastical. But don't forget, this book was written in 1919. It was published in 1919. And so what comes out of it was, how I understood it, the magic seemed to be, the wizards and the witches seemed to be innocents. They kind of asked the questions out loud and pointed out the absurdities of life back then, which is interesting because maybe people weren't comfortable enough to talk about the war or talk about the absurdity of everything. They had this kind of society way of not being able to create waves or creating any disruption to their reputation, being seen as committing to the war effort or helping in committees, stuff like that. So Sarah Brown, her recount of this story is really about her frustration with the world and also a frustration, I think, about her own disabilities. Now, a lot of the times, as I was reading about Stella Brown, the author, and about what she went through in her life, it was reflected in the book, but in fantasy and sci-fi elements. So, look, it's not a book for everyone. I reckon some people probably might get impatient with it, but I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it because it simply reminded me that this was just a book that was written at a time of great difficulty. They were at war. Their men were dying. Young men were dying. And she was simply trying to make sense of the information, and not being able to have a voice as a woman in that society meant that she could write a book and actually express it in different ways as this sci-fi fantasy book. So that is my quick review for the Kindle book, Stella Brown, How to Live Alone. Okay then, thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Bye for now.